Guardians aren't supposed to investigate their past. That's the rule. But I'm not good with rules.
This is fucking annoying. I don't know why you people are watching this shit anymore. The point has been made. You've seen all you need to see. Move on.
Well, Bungie, you released your new DLC. Subpar, like anything else you make lately. How did you manage to fuck this up? How did you manage to take two of the heaviest lore influencers in your game and make them just the most pathetic shit I've ever seen? For those of you who don't know, the latest DLC by Destiny 2, Bungie, and whatever else concoction you might want to throw into that mix, Activision, whatever. The latest DLC for the Destiny 2 game is the Warmind DLC. Not gonna call it an expansion. Expansion would be too kind. Hell, DLC doesn't even fit the word. I'd say map pack. It's more of a map pack. We were promised somewhat a compelling story. We were introduced to a pretty interesting character, which we'll get into in a bit. But as far as the story goes, as far as gameplay goes, there wasn't much. This should have been a $5 expansion, $10 at most. You know, we got a new area, yippee-ki-yay. Nothing else too worth it. We'll begin with the story, because where else would we start? That's where you start off this new DLC, it's with the story. And we're introduced with Anna Bray, or Anastasia Bray, which is quite an interesting character. She's daughter to one of the head directors and scientists of the Clovis Bray facility, which created Rasputin. And I thought this was going to be one hell of a compelling story about how Rasputin was created and who Anastasia Bray is and what kind of influence the Bray family had on creating Rasputin. Instead, we got a hatchet of a job of a story. We somewhat hear about Anastasia in the background, and you know, Rasputin shows up in the first mission, shows up in the last mission, gives us this cool new weapon, the Valkyrie, which you can't use unless you pick up these little key codes to activate in the middle of a fucking escalation protocol. But like, what the fuck was Bungie doing with this? We had the Siva outbreak in Rise of Iron, which was revolving somewhat around the Warmind, but not too heavily on it. Then we had all these other moments where in the Dark Below and in the House of Wolves, and even Taken King, where we had the Hive, the Fallen, pretty much anybody, even the Cabal in Destiny 2 tried to get the power from the Warmind on Io. And yet here we are with the source of Rasputin, the power of Rasputin, the main computing system of Rasputin, the brain essentially of who Rasputin is. And yet they managed to make him the least interesting thing in the world. It was quite interesting to find out that the one Rasputin, or the Warmind in the Cosmodrome, was not the official one. The head, the brain of the Warmind, Rasputin, was on Mars in the Clovis Bray facility. But that's as far as it goes. He's got a new weapon, we get to use the weapon, and that's pretty much it. As far as Rasputin's story, I can't really get in depth with it because not even I'm 100% sure where the fuck they wanted to go with this. They introduced us to Rasputin, and then we finish off by saying, hey Rasputin, you do your thing and defend humanity the way you think you should.
The Bray family shaped me to be an all-seeing savior, while your vanguard sought to wield me as a primitive weapon. But today, that ends, and I define the reality of my own existence. My sight will stretch to the edge of this system and beyond. Never again will a threat go unseen. From this day forward, I will defend humanity on my own terms. I am Rasputin, guardian of all I survey. I have no equal.
What have we done?
But we didn't really go in depth on how he was created, why. Well, we know why he was created. It was to defend humanity, and it was part of the Golden Age tech. But we also don't know, like, the struggles he had fighting against Zol, for example, a worm god. But we'll get into that in just a minute. But they never get into too much depth about Rasputin and why he was fragmented so badly. We just know that the collapse happened, he was fragmented, and he had to seal himself on Mars and in the Clovis Bray facility. Now, if we move on to Zol, the worm god, the Will of Thousands, I believe. He's quite the interesting god. He's just a giant ass fucking worm. He slithers around, shoots beams out of his mouth, I guess, has no eyes, and burns the ground, I guess. Honestly, for a worm god, I feel like fucking Oryx had more power than a goddamn worm god. And fucking Oryx prays to these motherfuckers. Honestly, I'm just disappointed. They had so much potential in this for a good narrative, for a good story. Just look at what they did with the Rise of Iron, which the enemy was Siva, but we also had the Fallen who gained the power of Siva. Then you had the Taken King with Oryx, and they created a nice cinematic campaign, fairly long too, plenty of missions. I understand that was a $40 expansion, but still, this expansion, for having a Warmind in it, Rasputin specifically, a new character like Anastasia Bray, who has an interesting background as the daughter of the lead scientists in the Clovis Bray facility. And on top of that, we have Nokris, the exiled son of Oryx, who is also a necromancer, which according to Zavala and Anastasia is considered taboo amongst the Hive, so he was excommunicated for that reason. And then you have a worm god Zol, which is who Nokris is working for, or is an underling of. But as far as the story of the Hive goes, we don't even learn much about Nokris. Like, we don't even learn that he's the excommunicated son of Oryx until Bungo released a video on their social media pages saying that he was. Saying that because of his necromancer practices, he was excommunicated, exiled.
According to Lost Hive scripture, Nokris is the excommunicated son of Oryx. He's a necromancer, something extremely rare for the Hive. Rasputin froze Nokris and Zol, but now they're loose. They want to turn all of Mars into a spawning ground. We've got to stop Nokris.
By Oryx himself, I believe. And then we have also Zol, the worm god, one of many worm gods that they have. And we find out that they're not just gods, they're actual creatures. Now, my problem with all that is how we go about the story. So we begin by discovering the Warmind on Mars. We find out who Anastasia is. Then we find the weapon, the Valkyrie. We use it to fight off several enemies. We move on to, luring out this worm god Zol. We use a piece of the Traveler, a fragment, a shard, to lure out Zol. But first we have to go to his feeding grounds where Nokris is. And Nokris essentially prepares sacrifices for Zol to feast on and grow stronger. When we go to Nokris and we fight him, and it turns out to be a strike, we also fight him in a main story mission. It's actually an interesting fight. We have multiple layers. We have to fight off multiple bosses. I can't remember the first one. It's like a mini boss, I guess. It was more of a wizard or a knight or some shit. I'm not remembering exactly. You guys have gameplay right in the background. You'll be able to see. Then you come up to this preparation room where they prepare an ogre to be sacrificed to Zol. And so you have to take down the crystals, which later plays a part in fighting Nokris. And as we're fighting these guys, we set loose the ogre, and we have to fight the ogre, and he's like a mini boss. We kill him. We go down to the last phase. The last part of the mission, And we have to fight Nokris himself, who is a necromancer, so he raises Thrall from the dead and whatnot to fight for him. We also have to use the same crystal, an orb, to destroy the crystal, to weaken Nokris' shield so he can take him out. We do DPS phase, rinse and repeat. As repetitive as it gets, I still find myself enjoying that fight more than I did fighting Zol, a worm god. Someone who's supposed to be more powerful than, what's his face? Nokris himself, or even Oryx. And Oryx had a whole fucking raid behind it, and he had the Taken and the... Anyways, if we go back to Zol, later after we defeat Nokris, Zol comes out, talks to us, talks shit, tries to kill us. Somehow a worm god doesn't kill us. Instead he tries to, you know, collapse the caves on us and kill us. But let's face it, that was pretty pathetic. Like, at least make us fight him and he just totally smashes us the first time or something. Anyways, mission right after, we have to go and power up the Valkyrie to make sure it's strong enough to fight Zol. We go into multiple layers of just ad control and and waves of ads and shit. Wasn't really that interesting. You know, you get to use the Valkyrie for quite a bit. Then you finally reach the actual boss fight room or area. Much smaller than Nokris' chambers, or where Nokris was first to fight him. And it's really just rinse and repeat. He has Zol has a little laser beam that casts, that goes across the room. You avoid that fairly easily, snipe him a few times, hit him with some rockets if you want. ARs do well, scouts do well, pretty much anything does well as long as you can hit that centerpiece in his mouth. Then his second phase is he starts to burn the ground, and he still has a laser going across, but at that point you have the Valkyrie, which you can pretty much take him out once you get the Valkyrie. It's really fairly easy, but for a boss fight, especially a final boss fight that turns out to be a strike afterwards, I was really disappointed. We've got this worm god, this hive god right here in front of us, and yet he seems like the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my life. We literally took 10 minutes to kill him. And this falls under with the raid, which I'll talk about raid layers in just a bit. But Bungie needs to stop doing this crap where we have raid layers, and then we have this really interesting character or boss that we could be fighting in a raid. Imagine fighting a worm god in a raid, or at least Nokris in a raid or something, you know? Crota, Oryx's son, had a fucking raid. Nokris, Oryx's son, gets a single strike. Zol, God, gets a strike. The Taken King himself, Oryx, gets a raid. It doesn't add up. It doesn't equal each other. And yeah, we did get a raid layer, but like I said, a layer is shorter than a raid. So why not have the layer and then give us this raid with Zol? I always liked the Hive. I always liked the theme behind the Hive, and the raids, including the Hive, like the Crota raid and the Oryx raid, are two of my favorite raids. Yeah, I enjoyed, you know, Vault of Glass. That's, you know, a classic. You can't get over that. But it's still something that's just I can enjoy. I can go back and play the Crota raid and just enjoy it. I can play the Oryx raid, and yes, the Oryx fight itself is a little complex and you need to have people who know what they're doing, but it was still enjoyable. I still enjoyed playing it. But Zol, for a worm god, doesn't get a raid, and that, you know, that just ruined everything for me, because afterwards you talk to Rasputin. He says, I'm the guardian of all, I will defend humanity the way I see fit, yada yada yada. But as far as Zol goes, he's just plain. It's just another hive creature that you kill in a strike. It's like you're putting Savathun and or whatever that fucking giant oracle thing was. I forget what they're called. Screechers. You put the whole Screecher, like giant Screecher, on the level of a hive god. Like, what? How the fuck are they equal? But I digress. Next thing is I'm gonna mostly talk about the grinding very quickly. It should be a couple minutes or so, because the grinding's back. I actually enjoy the grind. I have some issues here and there with it. It's fairly repetitive to an extent, But we finally have something to do, you know, look for the sleeper, look for these other weapons that are unique. Hunting down the data shards that we had to hunt down, those were fairly interesting. I did look up a few just to make sure I got them all, but that was fun to do as well. It was something that was different. We had to have specific weapon types and burns to get those things, and I actually found myself going back to Destiny to play it for the first time in about a year. I finally gave myself a reason to go back and play. But as far as grinding's back. I'm enjoying it to an extent. I would like to complete an escalation protocol, but you know, it's hard to find people that'll stick around for the whole thing. They'll start it off with you and then take off, and they won't stay. But as far as grinding goes, fairly enjoyable. I'm enjoying some of the adventures. The adventures are also okay. Some of them are better than some of the story missions. They may take a little longer, they may frustrate me in the heroic, but they're still enjoyable, and I enjoy them. The next big thing that I wanted to mention is the Crucible changes, or at least the addition of quote-unquote ranks, which aren't really ranks, they're just level ups. And the level ups, it goes up and up and up, and it doesn't seem to go down if you lose a game. But I haven't actually played enough to notice. That won't get me going back into Crucible, because Crucible's still fairly broken. I can use the weapons I want to an extent, but if I come across a team of team-shotting Midas, it's just over. I remember in Destiny 1, I could wipe a whole fucking team, no problem, even if they had Midas and they were team-shotting me. But heaven forbid in this game, you come across two people with Mida, and you have a Mida, you're dead. Or you even come looking around a corner, you're dead instantly. Like, you just peek it, you're dead. No fucking fight is gonna happen. You're not going to take out the shields. You're not going to take somebody's health out. You're not even going to knock the first guy and then have his boyfriend kill you. You're just dead instantly. But as for Crucible, I'm not surprised they haven't made many changes. The biggest thing I'm looking for, and unfortunately this in September, is the weapon balancing and the weapon changes. Weapon slots specifically, where specials are going to come back. And they're not going to be these fucking burn weapons and then whatever. Anyways. That's for September. That's when there will actually be some news. Right now, there's nothing to cover. Aside from this shitty DLC. Another thing, the story is just so short that I finished it in 2.5 hours, and that's including doing 2 adventures in the middle to level up my character, because I wasn't high enough to get to do a level 28 mission or some shit. But yeah, if you take your time, it might go a little longer, but I'm saying if you try and like speed run it through it, you could probably get it done in 2 hours even, maybe less. It's got less story than the Crota Dark Below expansion did, and that says a lot. That really says a lot. I will say that for lore, there are plenty of nuggets of lore for you lore fans out there. But fuck me, man, it just seems like, from what I've seen from everybody tweeting and Facebooking and whatever other social media sites I check out, and even the forums on Bungo, nothing seems to add up. Like, they say, they contradict what they had in Destiny 1, and honestly, I just think that this is a really bad reboot. It's not even a sequel, it's just a reboot, because the writers don't seem to really give a shit about what they're writing about. But yeah, mini rant over, pretty much. I can't really think of anything else I should cover on this DLC. It was fairly short. I've pretty much outlived it already. I've played a few Crucible matches here and there. I've been leveling up just because I'm leveling up. But yeah, I don't see this lasting much longer. Maybe a month for those hardcore Destiny fans. And yeah, I'm just going to go back to playing PUBG. I guess, like, maybe jump on that Fortnite hype train. Not even, no. What am I kidding? Spend money on that fucking pass and I still haven't played enough. But yeah, weekly reset actually happens today. It's Tuesday, so probably gonna check that out. Do some strikes and shit. Get my Titan up. But yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, it's cool for grinding. There's some lore, but the story was shit. They fucking butchered it. And there's nothing really to cover. Anybody who's a hardcore Destiny fan cannot defend this. This is a $20 expansion that should have been $5, $10 at most. Yeah, we got a cool new area, but nothing else. You didn't give us a good, compelling story. And that's what pisses me off the most, because I'm somebody who enjoys a good story. I've been replaying all the Halo games, and I've been loving the story, excluding Halo 4 and 5. But Halo CE, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, Halo Reach, great stories in my opinion. I enjoyed them deeply. I still enjoy them to this day. I can go back and play Destiny 1 and play the vanilla Destiny, Dark Below, House of Wolves, TTK, and Rise of Iron, and I'll still feel like I'm accomplishing something. But in this game, I feel like I'm beating myself over the head with a hammer as I'm playing it. That's it for me, guys. If you enjoyed the video, like. If you didn't enjoy it, dislike. This is just a sad case for Bungie. They just keep digging themselves a hole that's deeper and deeper and deeper. But I will catch you guys on the next video. Comment down below what you would like to see. I can always do PUBG highlights or Battlefield 1 highlights, depending on what you guys like. If you want me to stream more and stream specific games, let me know. I'll try and stream those. Because this isn't just a channel for me, it's a channel for you guys. And I definitely enjoy making content, especially seeing how much you guys support my content. But that's it for me, guys. I'll see you on the next one.